Welcome into the space. This is our space, right? This is where we get together, do our thing, come into the space of awareness, truth, finding out as we pull the veils off ourselves. We pull and welcome again. I want to welcome you guys in before I can start going into Revelation immediately. And I was about ready to pull a Scooby Doo revelation out of my hat, and I'm going to as soon as. But I just want to welcome you guys in the space. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for those who just have been building and building yourself and sharing things with me that you're finding out, and the lights coming on. And those are the ones who are growing and expediently fast. I mentioned on the last video, expediently fast. The last videos definitely going in on different stuff, but I appreciate all of you guys. This is our space. This is a community that we can come and get in on it and get it of what we're focused. We're putting back the veils. Like I said, we're renting our own veils of perception that was covered by the illusionary thoughts and the illusionary beliefs and the illusionary programming, right? So I really appreciate all of them. And if you're new and that's in a space you want to learn, be here. Go back and watch my old videos from going back a few years ago, and you'll find some stuff there. The deprogrammer, definitely. So let's go in. I told you that we would do some things again on the shadow self and on your own shadow work within yourselves. And we would give you some resources. We're going to go on there. I got another video with Gabor Mate. Actually, I'm going to do two different videos on this recording and the next one. So I told you we'd bring it. People seem to like that. A lot of questions, a lot of watches on that, the shadow self, and really getting in and wanting to know how to do that work, because it's a challenge, because it's a dark work, but the darkness is really you, inner child. Through the process of turning back veils on who really was my shadow self. I had a talk with somebody who credited it almost creating your own AI. I would say the AI would be on our part. You locked away an aspect of your past, which is another version of you, the child that was hurt, the child who went through stuff, the child who wasn't fully equipped, the child, whatever you may have went through, that really you had to bury within yourself just to deal and stay afloat as you grew as a person, but from a child, but then never went back and dealt with it, and almost locked that child in the room or closet and turned off the lights. That's why I call it the shadow self, right? A reflection of many hurts and feelings and stuff we deal with parents who don't know, and grandparents who didn't know what to do with their parents, and you can go back generations, and then adding programming to it, right? We got a lot of programming and beliefs that have just been veiled on us over and over, and I keep talking about, as you get those unattachments and you start deleting them, unwinding them, reverse engineering them out of yourself. It's work, and it can be a very tedious task. It can be very emotional. It can be very challenging. It can be very draining, but it becomes rewarding as you do the self-healing on yourself. So I'll give me a little bit about my background. Over 20 something years, I worked in mental health, always working and serving in some way of helping others. I did other jobs when I was younger, but that was what I ended up focusing and going into, that it just seemed was natural. Everything from working with the disabled, and then even transitioning from that aspect into mental health, into coaching youth in sports, and creating team, and creating value in creating a unity even with sports, to build people, to also know how to deal with children. And I have, gosh, if I could tell you all the players that are between the 33 to the 40 now that I coach, that still have that connection with me, and them who came under me as a coach, that when I was even out of being an assistant to being a head coach, the things that we built after that was, for me, great experiences. It goes along with what I'm saying. Always in a help, always trying to restore, and always trying to help people find, kind of was what my heart was. So mental health is something that I definitely worked in, actually. as I record here, I'm less than 1 week from going into retirement from mental health, actually, that I've worked in for, like I said, over 20 something years, covering 2 counties of California, years and years in the first one and also in the second one, and just time with different things for me to, it's not there for that road is done, but this road that when you actually do the work is something that you need to complete that may never do. The introspective that we're competing with within ourselves to find ourselves as we get to know ourselves. Knowing yourself is finding God. That was what was written on Egypt. That's what's written in Messianic temples. That's why when you take scriptures and he says, "Don't you know that ye all are," is meaning, haven't you known that ye are? Don't you know who you are? That you are God's. You have that connection, that lineage, and even go outside the all. Because I went into the word God in etymology, and it's German king, German prince. German chief, German king. It's specifically Germanic. Not everybody comes from that lineage of Germanic. That would be one culture of what they use, just like all these cultures from Zeus, Jesus, Zeus, Greek to Roman, and then even beyond, Set, sunset, darkness, the devil, right? All this goes from all these different cultures that previously were connected to it. So it really isn't the all would be the all. Could be nameless. You just have to have a name. Names ends up having koju with actually different stuff. So we have all this lineage come down. I'll even talk about what I was going to spurt out about how they have us boomers. They have us generation this and generation this and generation that. That's all division. You got one head, 2 arms, 2 legs. You're a pentagram. You all have something more in common than a generational breakdown for division did by a system. Another layers. I identify as this. The people like this were like this. This generation was like this. This generation doesn't do like this. It's all part of the program, but going in and layering and taking off those veils within yourself and finding your darkness. And darkness doesn't have to mean evil. That's another program. Darkness is just something that's dark. It means actually ignorance. You're ignorant of what happened to you as a child. You couldn't deal with whatever you went through that caused pain and trauma and suffering, so you had to store it down, dig it down. You can't be in your forethought every minute as a child. God, you won't deal, you won't last. So, but we have to go in as adults when we have the wisdom and knowledge to know it's time to do the work. Got a great video for you today. Great video. We're gonna, like I said, we're gonna cut this video and the next video are covering where this is what we're gonna talk about, okay? How can we help ourselves and help our shadow self? Let's go. I'm gonna share a video with y'all. All right. Well, I say all right. Every time I hear it, what voice I hear is Matthew McConaughey. And I really ain't trying to be that. But the reality of it is, it can be all right? It can definitely be okay. So the name of this video is, Are You in Control of Your Triggers? So let's go.
Oh, but at least know that you're the one with all the explosive inside you. How you handle people who trigger you, somebody pulled that trigger. Perhaps you get triggered. Whenever you get triggered, somebody pulled that trigger, perhaps. But who's the one carrying the ammunition?
And I will silence it to add anything that I need to add, okay?
How you handle people who trigger you, that's your call. But at least know that you're the one with all the explosive inside you. And you gain so much liberation if you find out what that ammunition is and how you got it through getting to know yourself. And that's where freedom actually lies.
I'm going to keep going, but I just want to notice that's, to find this, he said, is getting to know yourself. That's why I like him, because there's an aspect of knowing and spirituality that he has. It's not all based on academia through the traditions of what goes with that. as many of us who know or in the spaces know, a lot of that is just programming and also compartmentalized knowledge, not connective knowledge. He says getting to know yourself is the way you get in the door. Was we are always talking about here that it's within. That's getting to know yourself. So quit staying outside yourself and judging outside yourself and participating outside yourself. Once you go within, you'll understand the participate outside even more, but you'll know your foundation and your frequency and your vibration comes from within. Your power is within. So listen to this. It's good stuff.
Guys, if nobody had the power to trigger you, not because you were closed down and shut down and isolated, but because you're totally aware of yourself. The point of compassion inquiry is precisely to drill down to those core stories that people tell themselves. Is to actually get them to see what story they're telling themselves unconsciously, what those beliefs are, where they came from, and show them, guide them to the possibility of letting go of those stories, or letting go of the hold that those stories have on them. It's simply a method of drilling down. When I say drilling, I don't mean like a dentist. Although pain can come up, but the difference between this method and the dentist is that the dentist necessarily causes pain in the course of their work, and so most often they numb people before they do their work. Well, here it's the opposite. It's not that we cause pain, but pain may emerge, and we don't want you to be numb. If the pain emerges, we want you to feel that pain. However, the assumption is that we don't have to cause it, it's already there.
Wow. I like that correlation of the dentist purposely because of their work hurting you and numb you so you don't feel it so they can do the work, where this is the pain is there. We don't want you numb, we want you feeling, we want you aware, but the pain is already there, so it's going to come up. It's not that we're giving you the pain's coming up through the process of doing the work. Yeah, it's beautiful.
And very often the stories we tell ourselves are attempts to get away from the pain. I'm talking about the conscious stories, to get away from the pain or someone to manage it. And those efforts to manage the pain, not to feel it, then are the basic cause of illness, whether physiological.
That's heavy, because I was seeing that and I was just recognizing that within me, right? Finding a way to deal with the pain and then hide the pain, to push the pain away, but really this is when the illness starts being manifested from the pain. Very powerful, very true, very much it aligns with me. I can feel it, I can see it. I've experienced it, many of you have too. Anybody here have has even any empathy or empathic feelings and experiences know that you actually feel this in other people when you don't feel the pain of what they went through, but then you experience it on a level to almost connect with them and feel their pain, even though it wasn't your experience. But this is really bringing out your experience. Powerful.
Illness, well, all illnesses are physiological, but whether the obviously identified illnesses like autoimmune disease, neurological illness, from multiple sclerosis to chronic skin conditions, these all have unresolved and unrecognized emotional underpinnings. And in my view, those underpinnings are rooted very strongly in a person's childhood. Not just in the sense of emotional dynamics and the stories we tell ourselves, but even very often in our very physiology. I gave a talk in Vancouver on addiction, and a woman came up to me and she told me, she said,
Had to run and check something real quick. I was hearing what he was saying even when I kind of left for a second. And the manifestation or the symptoms of the pain will manifest itself in the illness, but really the illness is not the pain, is not the core of where the affliction is, right? It's just the symptom, not the start or the origination of where it's at. And yeah, I see that all the time. That makes sense to me because we're really definitely used in a dirt field where that's done to us all the time, a certain field, right? But anyways, let's keep going. This is really good.
Cancer 3 times, she's the type that just can't say no, that is always succumbing to other people's demands and expectations. I write about that in my book, When the Body Says No. This is the basis of a lot of illness. And Julie Gottman today over breakfast, she said, well, she calls it the TNS, the Terminal Niceness Syndrome. And this woman fit the type, and she says, I can't stop doing it. I can't stop. I can't say no. I can't say no, for example, to my boss's expectations. She says, I don't understand it. I've been chanting 2 hours a day for 20 years. She's been doing spiritual work, without which her life might be a lot more difficult, might be a lot less balanced. Nevertheless, she's still unable to utter the word no, despite 20 years of chanting. Well, that's spiritual bypass. That's why you do the spiritual work, and you might attain great states of even oneness, or peace, serenity, joy. And it may be true for you that it has really transformed your life, and it can even be true that it has transformed your life, but not in certain areas.
Powerful.
And where the spiritual work has not transformed your life sufficiently, it could be for 2 reasons. Maybe you haven't practiced well or long enough, or maybe there's an emotional side that you haven't dealt with. Maybe there's some truth that you haven't yet glimpsed or known what to do with. And that's where the compassion inquiry complements the spiritual work. There will be at times when some heavy emotions may come up. When I say heavy emotions, I literally mean emotions that are hard to bear and, hard to carry. That's okay. In fact, it's probably a sign.
I like what he said. That was very powerful, because I've seen this and couldn't really, I guess, some ways I like the way he put it in how he assessed it and how he delivered it. For me, was awesome. Was the fact that your work that you were doing was effective in transforming you in a lot of different other ways, but it wasn't getting you into the space of your inner child, into that shadow self to do the work, because that definitely is something that can help, but doesn't necessarily fix it without you doing a certain type of work besides it as you go, because this is really going in to find a version of you that's still hidden in you, that's been almost locked away, isolated from, with the hurts and pains and sufferings and things and traumatics that it went through, in the suffering and the pain that it went through, and how this has kind of flees from us still. You still find you're triggered, because this video is about, are you in control or not, your triggers? And when you hear that, you can definitely get into, this is a certain space that takes certain kind of work, that you need to do to get in there, because you may be covering yourself in all different areas. I can totally see that within myself. There's some areas that it's like, man, D, you definitely have a lot of great spiritual gifts and knowledge, and just you revelate. I have people tell me, you revelate, that know me for years, that you revelate on a drop of a hat sometimes. And I just find it amazing. And then when you do, I feel I can even go on that space with you, and it starts activating in me. And then I'm like, but I also see the spaces that he's talking about that still I deal with, that it's not fully. It's like, how can I get in that crevice and do this work? And, I'm always talking about using your tools here to avoid dropping down your frequency and vibration, especially if you have goals. You want to get to certain places. You see what you need to do to get there. But then you have these other things that you have to do some maybe drastic work. And I'm talking to me as I'm talking to you. The mirror hits me. I can point to you, but there's 4 fingers pointing to me. I'm really going deep on myself, because this is all us doing. I can't do it for you. You can't do it for me. We need to empower that we all got this power, and we all got power to do this.
Sign of lack of depth on our part if that doesn't happen for some of you. Not that we intend to cause it, it's just that it's going to happen. So let's just talk about right now about what happens and how to manage it if that happens for you. So first of all, there's nothing wrong. If you get triggered, that's the buzzword these days, that's perfectly all right.
That's one of the things where I said I work in mental health, is that's one of our key words, is helping my clients understand their triggers and their reaction to triggers and understand what triggers them, and to use certain skills, coping skills, when these triggers start becoming, because if you become more aware, you can actually see the trigger before it's pulled, before you, because you're the ammunition, which this will get into later and in the next video, which is very powerful. I like the way he puts this. So just bear with me. But I would work on list when you know this and you start being such aware that you see, okay, this trigger's coming. How can I deal with it before it comes? So I can make adjustments by using my coping skills to change, really it's avoid the trigger. And I think that's a good skill, but this is more going into and doing the deeper work of what causes it, which is it's really not attacking the symptom, but attacking the cause of it.
But on the other hand, for the person being triggered, you might want to consider what a trigger actually is.
Listen up.
So the metaphor comes from what? It comes from weaponry.
Got
It
it.
comes from,
Pull the trigger.
instruments of war. And the trigger actually is a very small part of the mechanism. In the gun or the rifle or the pistol or the revolver, machine gun, there's a whole mechanism to deliver the ammunition. There's the ammunition itself. There's something explosive that will propel the ammunition to its target. Then there's a trigger, which is just big. Whenever you get triggered, somebody pulled that trigger, perhaps. But who's the one carrying the ammunition? Who's the one with the mechanism to deliver the ammunition? Who's the one with the explosive material inside them? And where do you want to put your attention? You want to put your attention on the trigger purely? Or are you curious about what ammunition, what explosive material you're carrying inside?
Stop that. That's powerful. So when others or situations become the trigger, but the trigger they're pulling, you're the gun. You're the ammunition within the gun. You're really, the trigger is being pulled by something outside of you, but it's really about something in you. Somebody bringing it and triggers you, brings up that which is in you that you were triggered. You're the ammunition. And I like which we talk about all the time, what you're going to give intention to. As you know here, we always are talking about intention is antennas. Where you give your attention or your antenna to is what's going to come out of it. This is very powerful. I like this. This is something that is very powerful. Do you guys want to hear that again? I kind of do. Let's go back just a little bit. Maybe even a little bit more. Let's go.
Trigger, perhaps. But who's the one carrying the ammunition? Who's the one with the mechanism to deliver the ammunition? Who's the one with the explosive material inside them? And where do you want to put your attention? You want to put your attention on the trigger purely? Or are you curious about what ammunition, what explosive material you're carrying inside? And so triggers are really great to work with if you want to get to know yourself.
Key.
And
get to know yourself.
If you don't want to get to know yourself, then what we usually do is we just resent whoever did the triggering.
Listen to that. You resent the one, the pulls that you see that triggers you or the situation. And what does that do? It causes you to blame something outside yourself. This is actually unknowingly, right? And what happens, we talk about blame goes in the frequency of being lame, being broken. Lame is why you have a story of biblical story of Cain and Abel. Cain, somebody with a cane walks with a cane for support because they're unable, the other brother, to walk up straight and balance themselves. So they need a cane. They need support because within themselves they're not able. That's kind of why anybody who walks with a cane has something about them actually having some being lame, maybe not being whole to do the walk and stand and balance. So when you don't know, but you become ignorant, darkness to your darkness, if that makes sense. If you do the work and want to know yourself, then you can really find out how to deal with this and really what the cause, and even take responsibility that you are the what? Ammunition's within you. They may pull the trigger, but the trigger of the gun is kind of you, and the ammunition is within you.
That we think they did this to us. How you handle people who trigger you, that's your call. But at least know that you're the one with all the explosive inside you. And you gain so much liberation if you find out what that ammunition is and how you got it, and whether you can really diffuse it, like you diffuse a bomb. You can actually diffuse that ammunition inside you through getting to know yourself.
Love that.
And that's where freedom actually lies. If nobody had the power to trigger you, not because you were closed down and shut down and isolated, but because you're totally aware of yourself. Well, that's where liberation actually is. And that's what all the spiritual teachers, I believe, want to educate people to do in their particular way. Here we do it differently. Here we do what I would call the archaeology of the mind. You know, the archaeologist has got some very fine tools, and they're very careful. You know, they don't just dig in there with a big shovel and apply force. It's more like a very gentle dusting off of tiny little objects and looking at them, what it's really about, and seeing how they all fit together.
Finding, seeking.
And maybe what were broken fragments really are a beautiful thought.
I'm just kind of, and I'm going to get on what he's saying now, because I heard something when I put it on that with the broken fragments is something we've been talking about here, is using your tools, but knowing how to be a surgeon with the, like a really, have you ever had a dentist that's like, man, you're really good. The pain I feel since you've been my dentist is limited because they know how to work with the tools and they're very skilled at it. And that's what he's saying the archaeologist is they dig, but they don't dig to destroy, they dig to find. So they're very skilled with the tools, how they don't find something that could be valuable or needed historical, and they just crack it because they're just over there whack-a-mole. No, it's being very aware, and that's us doing the spiritual work, being very aware what we're talking about. And then he says, maybe what we're broken into fragments really are a beautiful vase. And this is what we've been talking about here, right? We've been talking about that you're the fragments or the fractal light that was broken as Humpty Dumpty, that you're putting back together again. Remembering all things that I told you, which was a scripture in the New Testament, right? Remembering is putting something back together that was once together. Once it was a vase. But now it seems to be broken and scattered in the fractal elements of the reflection of the light, right? But when that fractal of the light comes, that light's going out into the universe and calling back to you, call and response, which is an old blues method of call and response with the guitarist and the singer, or where they give the sound and they get the sound back. It's called call and response. It's the same fractal light reflecting is you don't get, remember we talked about, you don't get out of life what you want, you get out of life what you are, what you draw by your reflections. And this is what he's talking about. When you see yourself as a beautiful vase through this, let's just go, let him finish this off.
Once the archaeologist has finished their work, and in this case, you're being invited to be your own archaeologist of the mind.
I like that. Put this on to make sure that, that this works good. All right. Hope you guys like that, man. That's some deep, good inner being working. You need some healing. I do still. We're doing the work on myself daily. I see my weaknesses and my strengths and my stuff that I went through as a child and a younger boy. And I can call and I can share and all that. And then working in the profession and then going through the process of the last year. And I'm counting the year as the end of 23 fall to going into fall of 24. In this calendar year, I'm using these years. This year of change, and that was me really digging in even before that, the summer before that, even to the spring before 23, of really honing in on my shadow self. And then as I honed in on my shadow self and started seeing this, it opened up other doors of the reality that we live in, but I'm still doing that work, and all of us need that work as much as we can. I was the other day saying it's a time to be really real and know what you're looking at and not be caught in being taken by somebody who appears to be with you but really aren't of you. Because this can happen, and it does happen all the time when you give relevance, especially to things outside of yourself, as being your source. Is that you really have to hone in on knowing and allow that knower to work. But that's a whole different level than going in and do the work. Like you said, there's spiritual things we practice and we transformed in other ways, but that hidden inner child of trauma still hidden in a room, that we still need to go in there and help it out, because it is you. It's not AI, it is you. Just healing, the healings. There's versions of ourselves that are connected to ourselves. Even here, the baby self, the infant self, the baby self, the toddler self, the young boy self, to the going to the preteen self, to the teen self, to the early 20 self, to the 30 self, to the 40, all these versions. These are versions of yourself. And then if you had any spiritual explosion there, then you're talking about going into a higher version of yourself, not just old versions. It could just be, everybody has those old versions, right? But sometimes they don't have the cosmic awakening of their higher being self that we've seen, and we even recently talked about with Dynamo Jack, right? The Dynamite Man, showing us potential. But this is the work we need to do. My next video, we're going to follow up with some more that's connected to triggers. I hope you guys don't mind. A lot of people seem to really like these videos when I seen some of the things that were stated in questions, but also the watches. The watches on my first video on doing this inner child work really went really good. And I know I need it, and I know many of us need it. We need to be real, but we also need to be caring. I like the archaeologist of the mind. But you guys have a great day. I'm going to follow up. My next video will be connect to this. So you guys have a great day. Peace. No, we've had too many pieces already. Let's get a wholeness. We want the whole pie, the whole enchilada. We want wholeness, integrity. You guys have a great day.